I like to think of overall, thinking of your personal board of advisors or your business board as three big categories: stretch, support, and strategy.
Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to 5-Minute Founders, the show where we pick the brains of actual founders for the strategies, growth hacks, and stories of how they built their own companies. I'm your host, Matt LeBlanc, and my guest today is a partner and strategic advisor at the Sage Group and the Chief Commercial Officer at Wild Leaders. Dr. Daniel Hallak, welcome to the show.
Oh, my absolute joy, Matt. Thanks for having me on the show.
Absolutely. Why don't we jump right in here? Why don't you tell us, what is your business and what pain point does it solve for?
I am a partner and owner in the Sage Group, and the Sage Group is a business that works with business owners to help them create a path to value for themselves and for their organizations. And the pain point we solve is that every business owner will leave their business at some point. Most of them, unfortunately, will vacate it for suboptimal value. They're going to put a for sale sign up, and all the hard work, all the blood, sweat, and tears, their sacrifices are going to be diluted in value. And so we help them create an intentional path. We meet them where they are and create a path to create strategic value for themselves personally, professionally, and for their organization, including the people they love, and then call them employees, in the communities that they serve.
Excellent. Do you have a couple of areas that you could kind of call out, maybe that you sort of most commonly work on with these businesses?
Yeah, we really take, Matt, a whole organization full approach. So we're working on them with their wealth plan as owners, because they're gonna come into wealth through the work that we do. So we help them with their wealth plan and a career plan, so that when they one day exit, if they're at retirement age, they have something great to sail into. If they're younger as a founder owner, because we're working with owners, often founders. If they're younger, we want to make sure that they have a next step and a plan for maybe how to reinvest their money, what's that could look like. So it's covering their wealth plan. It's covering the strategy of the business and their strategic options, where they're going to be going and where they're going to be heading. We get our hands dirty too. We will get into the operations. We'll case the investor landscape. I mean, we are really doing, Matt, an end-to-end thing. And if they need an expertise or a domain that we don't provide ourselves, we've got a vetted network of folks that we'll pull in to provide that on a project basis for them. So I like to think about it like, if growing the value of their business needed a football team, we're going to be their head coach and quarterback.
Gotcha. And your background, so correct me here, but I'm going to ask kind of, I think, what will be a maybe basic question, but you have a PhD in industrial organizational psychology. Is that correct?
You got it.
And can you give us maybe just like the elevator, explanation of what that is?
Yeah. So the simple way of thinking about it is, how do we take what we know from decades of research in psychology, apply it to business, and help businesses, leaders, and their people be more productive, effective, help leaders be better, create healthy cultures, places that people want to thrive and flourish. And so it's taking psychology and research and making people and organizations better.
Absolutely. So really kind of a perfect background for everything you're doing here. You're also, just relevant to mention, you're also a chief commercial officer at Wild Leaders, Inc. Yes, with Dr. Rob McKenna, who we also spoke to on this show.
Yeah, you got it. Wild is a key partner with Sage, because you can imagine, if we're going to grow the value of a business, leadership is such a key lever. Are we investing in the leadership capacity of that founder, that owner, the people on that team? Who's going to be leading it? When somebody comes to look at a business, they want to know we have leaders in place that are going to be able to have continuity and take this thing forward. And so that's a really key partnership and relationship with me. You know, last thing I'll say about industrial organizational psychology, Matt, the easy way I like to think about it is, Adam Grant is an industrial organizational psychologist, so people know him. Or if you ever see a study that says, Google found the 5 best managers do these things, something like that nature, it's probably a bunch of people in my field who are working at the Googles, the Microsofts, the Amazons of the world. They're taking that research, they're applying it to people, they're finding out how to make the workplace better, and then it results in that research and practice. Those are my people.
That's a great explanation. Thank you for that context. I'm curious, as a strategic advisor, how do you market yourself to high profile companies? What does a business want from someone like you, and sort of how do you best communicate what you offer, what you bring to the table?
I spend most of my day sending about 1,000 generic LinkedIn messages that just say I'll 10x your business with a magic wand. I'm kidding. Nobody likes those. It's funny because that's the type of thing that our clients are getting all the time. They're getting inundated with people reaching out to them. And so actually, we at Sage play behind the scenes. And so we certainly do marketing, but we have found our most valuable way of attracting clients is to do something of value in places that create value for them. I'll give you an example. One of the markets and industries that we have been involved in recently is in the home services business. You can think of plumbing, HVAC, and some people call those boring businesses. You see that term a lot. There was just a great HBR article and a Forbes article about how actually plumbing owners are the new millionaires of the future. So that's a hot space.
I've seen that.
Private equity is investing a lot because they're realizing these are businesses you're always going to need plumbing in your house.
Right.
And so instead of just reaching out to those owners, what we found is that if we can be involved in meaningful places to them, like the associations and the industries that they're a part of, we're actually going to be able to help raise the value of that industry,
right,
by investing in their collective businesses. And then we're going to meet the right people along the way. And that's more than just we're going to show up to a networking event. What it means is we might do really deep research on what's working and what's broken in their market. Mm-hmm. And in those conversations and interviews that we're doing research often for a client, by the questions we ask, they're going to say, you're asking different questions and you're seeing something that no one I know is talking about. Tell me more about this. Or they'll ask us a question. Hey, you know what? Somebody asked me to acquire their business. It sounds like you guys do that. So help me understand how to do that. So we have found that if we can be involved in doing really good research, helping raise the profile of that industry in some of their nexus points, like their societies, their professional associations, we're adding value to everyone in the industry. And then the right people are going to find us through that process.
Gotcha. Yeah, I feel like you're sort of leading me in here. You did a TEDx talk recently. The title of it was "Networking Doesn't Have to Feel Gross." Yeah,
you got it.
And so I do have some questions here about networking. I feel like correct me. I feel like that's kind of what you're describing in sort of how you're attracting a lot of these clients. Yeah.
Yeah, you got it. How do we do value-added relationship building? People often think of networking as, okay, I got to go dress up and go schmooze a bunch of people and try to help convince them that I've got a product, service, or something that they need. And it kind of feels like a gigantic game that you just have to play versus how do I go find people and places that I'm genuinely interested in, can add value, if nothing else, through the questions I ask and the meaningful relationships I build. And from there, the magic begins to happen.
Absolutely. So just jumping around a little bit here, so you did this TEDx talk. What inspires that topic? What is the key message? And how does that message sort of relate to the mission and the work that you do with the Sage Group?
Yeah, I have found that everything really is all about relationships.
Yeah.
Business is all about relationships. And when I step back and think about it, Matt, I can't find a product or a service that does not touch human lives positively or negatively in some way. And so business really is all about people. Even if it's building a process or a tool, it's ultimately to serve people.
Yeah.
And so value rises and falls on people and relationships. And whether it's with the owners we're working with, or even going all the way back to the beginning of my career, I started off doing recruiting at Microsoft and working as a coach. I would often find that if somebody is planning their career, the idea of networking, everyone says, go network. If you want to go find a job, go network. It's the first piece of advice they give. Or if you're a founder starting your business, they say, oh, go network.
Yeah.
Okay, but nobody tells you how.
Right.
And then people go to network to build their business or launch their career or navigate a transition. And it kind of feels like I just have to do this activity that I absolutely hate. I need to go schmooze people, sell them, show up and smile, and go try to sell people something they don't want and they don't need to get me ahead. And it just feels gross. And so I found even a decade and a half ago with my students in university, I had to reframe it for them and say, it's really all about building relationships. How do you build relationships for your career?
Yeah.
Whether you're looking for a job or for the rest of your life in a way that you feel like is generous, giving to them, building meaningful relationships and adding value. And then fast forward, that same student is one day going to be the next entrepreneur founder who's launching a business, will hopefully have a blueprint or a mental framework for how do I build my business, whether it be the investors and the relationships I build with them, my team, other partners, in a way that isn't just help me build my kingdom and my empire.
Right.
So that's really what spurred it, Matt.
Daniel, just jumping into some of your experience with Wild Leaders, what marketing strategies proved to be most effective in securing some of those higher profile clients? Are you still kind of going down this networking and sort of that avenue, or is there anything else that you can tell me? Like, how do you, when you're starting off in leadership development, how do you sort of separate yourself from the competition or, attract those first clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'd say there's a similarity, but a difference, right? The similarity is it rises and falls on relationships. The difference is, unlike Sage, where we tend to take more of a research focus, we're going to get in the mix, meet a lot of people through a set of conversations because we're casing an industry, releasing a report. Wild is also research-based, but that research fuels content, and that content is what drives engagements. That could be podcasts like this, could be written content, short form, long form. And speaking is a huge part of that too. So I'll talk about Wild, and I'll talk about myself early in my career when I started doing the leadership development work, and I was a lot younger than most of the pack. If we get in front of the right audience with Wild, with the right message that's differentiated, and we're going to add value, we will get the right clients.
Yeah.
And that's a double dip, because oftentimes if you're going to go speak at an event, they've paid for you to be there. They've curated the audience. You're helping serve them, but you're also creating thought leadership that differentiates us at Wild from being a vendor that says, here's a bunch of products and tools. And we've got products and tools, but it positions us as a thought leader to say, we solve a strategic need and we're the authority on this. And so at Wild, we build everything around trust. That is our brand value anchor, is that we will build trust. Our tagline is leadership equals trust. Now you can measure it. Now you can build it. That's really our value proposition. So if we can get up there and show people how you can measure trust, and we use the data from our research, and then show people how you can build trust, and we give them a roadmap, or at least enough for them to say, I got to talk to these folks. That ends up being really key. Back to the TEDx, that's how the TEDx happened. Originally, we were talking about getting Dr. McKenna, who you've interviewed, a TEDx, and we thought that would be a great marketing piece for us. And so I started building relationships with organizers. The TEDx that he did, and then I ended up joining as well, I built the relationship with the organizer probably 2 years before we got on stage. I just reached out and said, your forum you put together looks great. Love to learn more about it, what your type of content you're curating. We built a relationship, and I just said, keep me posted when you do something. I think we could add something unique and valuable. As I got to get a sense of their content needs and content gaps, the opportunity came up. She reached out. We got Rob on the stage. That deepened my relationship with them, which gave me the opportunity to get on the stage. So it comes back to relationships, but at Wild, we definitely have a content-driven strategy to take our authority out there and add value to people. So relationships and adding value to people are the common denominators.
Daniel, any pro tips for people when you're doing a cold outreach like that, when you're reaching out to somebody who organizes TEDx events, or just anything that's sort of like in your sphere like that? Do you have a couple tips of what that message sounds like?
Yeah, the bar is so low, and I'm always amazed that people don't do this more often. I joke earlier, I said, hey, I reach out to 1,000 people with a generic marketing pitch. Obviously, I don't do that, but it happens so often. People are sick of generic content that is clearly not tailored for them.
Yeah.
So doing your research and figuring out, okay, if you're the person who holds the event I want to be at, I'm going to research you. I'm going to research your event. I'm going to figure out what type of guests have you had in the past? Who's your audience? What are you reaching out to them for? I'm going to make a hypothesis about what is the value proposition type of content you're giving, and what's your economic engine? Are you driving it by sponsorships, by people paying? Like, I want to figure that out. And then I'm going to do research on you and see, do we know somebody mutually? And if we do, I'm going to reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking to connect with Matt. He runs this organization. They convene this group. I think we can add a lot of value in these specific ways. Tell me more about him. And get to the place where I say, would you be willing to introduce me to Matt?
Right.
And that will happen. You're going to get introduced. You're going to connect with me because a good friend of yours made that introduction. And then I've done my research. I've got questions that quickly make you realize this guy gets me. He's here to add value. We're not wasting time. We're singing from the same hymn book, right? Yep. That'll be the way to do it. Now, what happens if I don't have a mutual connection, Daniel? I don't know anybody. It's going to be a true cold call. Okay, again, do the research, figure it out, and then reach out to somebody with a really meaningful question or a reason to connect. It could be as simple as, I've been doing research on your association, your venue, and I've seen these things. I think I have some content that may be valuable for a future event. Would you be open to a conversation to explore this?
Yeah.
And if I've nailed you and your organization, you're going to have the conversation. If I've sent you a generic, I've obviously sent this to 500 other people, you're going to delete it. You're not even going to open it.
Right.
I'm amazed that it's simple to do the research. It just takes time. And today, because we live in a microwave everything culture, people don't do their research and they jump to the easy but less effective.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for that. I wanted to talk a little bit more about the nature of the content that you touched on with Wild. I know that you guys make a podcast, The Wild Conversation. As you said, you and Dr. McKenna have both done TED Talks. I'm wondering, do you have any sort of success stories in terms of building a community in this way? What are some tent poles that you have maybe found along the way, or anything that really made an impact when sort of building a community through content?
Yeah, that's great. Wild has such a diverse client base. So we've got businesses in the trades, financial services, education, government, you name it. We have probably served somebody in any space. And so one of the things we did a number of years ago is we had a long-standing community that turned into our podcast, actually, that we called The Wild Conversation. And we would gather leaders together on topics that mattered to them. So we pay really close attention to our leaders. We've got our own point of view and content for sure, but we pay attention to what are the things that people are wrestling with and they're trying to seek answers on.
Yeah.
And we'd create content. And we did this really engaging series for literally 4 years, every Friday for an hour, where we would have a bite-sized 15 to 20 minute, hard-hitting, positively provocative content piece. And then we would have people from just these diverse industries and backgrounds, and we'd put them into small groups of 3 to 4 people to talk about what they learned, apply it to their work, and then come back and share it. They'd put it in the chat. And I'll say what we found is that the content certainly drives engagement, but a lot of people stop there, Matt. What we took it to the next level was saying, nobody wants to come to webinars, but what they might be interested in is content that they can engage with, apply, build their network, and then leave. And so people would tell me every week, I got this business deal because I connected with so-and-so in your community, or I found a job with this person, or my goodness, one of your clients was in there and just sang your praises. And so it became this organic, really natural way for people to get exposed to who we are, what we do. And our team produced it like a boss. And so you get this great high production value, great content, and then a meaningful community interaction, just long enough where you go, I want a little bit more, but not so long that you check your watch and go, I'm ready to check out. And so that ended up being a really meaningful strategy, kind of more broadly. But again, we did it as a give back to our community, and it certainly drew business. We then took that same formula of what we called live, virtual, and interactive, and took it to specific communities. So we would do it just for founders and CEOs in particular sectors, or just for talent leaders, or pick your topic. And we found that those groups especially really curated content, high quality community, engaging, fast hitting, with on-ramps to future work was really meaningful for them and valuable for us.
Wow. So let me get this straight. So this was all done remotely. Yeah.
Yep. All virtual.
And how many, can you give me a sense of the number of people that might be joining the entire event?
Gosh, I mean, we had probably 40 to 80 people every week for 4 years. I mean, it was pretty amazing.
Wow.
And different people every week. So I'd say over the, we had 1,500 people who would rotate in and out depending on the topic. And you quickly start to realize, okay, this topic grabs this type of persona. So you experiment with the content. But yeah, we had a range of people come in, and it was a great community piece for us as well.
And then you would break them up into groups of 3. That was at random. Yeah.
Yeah, we would randomize the groups. Sometimes we might architect them depending on the topic. We would end the content with, okay, we're not going to fully resolve it. We're going to get right to that point where you go, what's next? And then here's 2 questions. You're going to get in a small group. You've got 12 minutes, answer these, and then come back. And this is the fun part, Matt, especially virtual engagement today. People would open up the chat and they'd come back and we'd say, what did you learn? What did you take away? 60 seconds. And they'd fill up the chat. And then what we did over the years was we took because now we're learning from leaders real time,
right?
Taking that with AI and starting to get a sense of what are some of the themes and things that leaders are caring about.
Yeah.
And again, that just feeds right back into the content. So we're creating content based on the leaders' wants and needs and how they're reacting to content. So we created a nice little virtuous cycle as well.
Incredible. I love that. Maybe I'm not well versed enough in that area. I don't think I've heard of anything quite like that before.
I'd never seen anything quite like it.
Yeah. Just shifting gears here a little bit. Daniel, I feel like you're sort of uniquely positioned to answer this question. I think because you work with so many business leaders and founding team members. But in your opinion, what constitutes a successful founder?
Ooh, it's a great question, Matt. Founders are a unique beast. And there's so many things, but if I were to boil it down, I would say action and awareness. And what I mean by that is founders get stuff done. They see a need or they see an opportunity, they create it, right? They put the blood, sweat, and tears in.
Yep.
And they take action. And so you have to take action. And yet, and we see this all the time, this is where Sage often comes in. There's the prolific founder who's just good at taking action. And there's the person who founded something and they might not think of themselves as a founder, but they are, and have gotten to the place where they're stuck. And so I think awareness of somebody to say, I've got a guy right now, for example, who is a serial entrepreneur. And he has figured out, I'm really good at starting a business, growing at this level, bring in a management team, move to the next thing, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, maintain equity in each piece. I'm building a portfolio. Great. He's taken massive action, but he has the awareness to realize, and he learned it the hard way in an early company where he tried to be the operator and he realized, no, I'm just a starter. But I've seen other founders who realize, okay, do you have the awareness to know what type of founder are you? Are you just the starter, the prolific entrepreneur? Did you see a need and you're really a builder, but you want to get it started and then start to build and eventually get to the place where you say, I need to bring a team in to help me scale. I've built something successful. So every founder needs action, but most stop there. And then they get stuck either doing something that's not optimal for them. And so do they have the awareness to realize what type of founder, how are they uniquely wired, and what would be their best and highest? Then we can come around them and help build the team or put them in the place that they're going to function best. So too often, I think we can overfunction for too long in a spot that doesn't give us joy, doesn't give us life, doesn't create value for the organization. So awareness and action is how I'd sum it up, Matt.
Excellent. I love that. Thank you. Similarly, what do you think makes a great marketer?
Awareness and action. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
I think a great marketer, we see a lot today talked about being client-centric and client-obsessed and client-focused. But I'm amazed again and again how when we engage with an organization, one of the first early steps in our methodology we call the path to value is to truly identify who is your ideal client.
Yeah.
And that discipline is difficult for people. But if they know who their ideal client is, most people stop there. I know my ideal client. I built a persona. I built a journey map. We're going to run with it, right? The question goes deeper than that, Matt. If you know your ideal persona, we take an ecosystem approach. I think the best marketers are not just, they start with the ideal client, the ICP, but then I look at who is the ecosystem around them? What are all the influences and the transactions of value, positive or negative, that are impacting that ICP? And if we can step out from there and think about what's impacting that person, how are they experiencing the world? How do they see the world? Now we can begin to craft something that's truly valuable for them, not just a product persona alignment.
Right. You're making me think of the events that you were just speaking about, the interactive events. I'm curious, when you're building that community, can you tell me some of the questions that maybe you asked, or some of the steps that you took to gather that community or find out what their pain points were?
Yeah, it's a great question. We're doing an event tomorrow as an example for talent leaders. And we're hoping to help them reframe the conversation on a talent scorecard and how they can measure trust as an example. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of people in that community. We've talked to a lot of people to get a sense of what they need, what they want. I will reach out. So we have people who are signed up for the event. I like to reach out to them ahead of time and say, when you saw this title and this description, what grabbed your attention? Mm-hmm. What are you hoping to get out of this? And what would a valuable conversation for you look like?
Yeah.
And when we do that, so tomorrow it's for talent leaders. We just did one recently for founders and CEOs, similar topic, but contextualized to them. Matt, it was so powerful to see what they were expecting from that session. One, instead of following up after the event, usually people do that. I'm trying to pre-follow up
and
engage in the relationship ahead of time, because I don't want to have a conversation just because you came to our event. I want to figure out what value for you looks like so I can design that experience for you. And then we have a really natural follow-on conversation there as well. So the more I can figure out what's top of mind for them, and not just what they want to hear, but really what are they wrestling with? What are the pain points that they're experiencing? That's going to help me think about what do they want, but also more at a deeper level, what do they actually need to have the content be about.
I love that. I feel like it's taking us right back to the topic of your TED Talk, right? You're sort of like preemptively like, what value can I bring to this? What can I offer you in the event that you're about to experience? Daniel, I know that you mentioned your experiences in recruiting earlier. I always love to ask this question to anyone who might have a relevant answer, but do you have any strategies or sort of like best practices, approaches to getting honest answers in an interview setting, specifically maybe to the question, what is your greatest weakness?
Yeah, I love that question, Matt, for a couple of reasons. One, noted it, my early career in recruiting, and then I did a lot of interview coaching for years. I was always amazed at how poorly prepared people are to interview. Part of it comes back to that research. And questions like this we can prepare for. So it's funny, I think it's similar to getting that honest answer is also kind of the mirror of how I tell somebody prepare for this question. And I always say, if your hiring process, if I can coach somebody to game your hiring process needs some work. So just that's something to note. I often stop and go, okay, what's behind that question? So First off, am I asking that question because I don't know how to interview? And so I looked up common interview questions and it came up in a top 10 list. I'm like, oh, let's grab that. Am I asking that question because I genuinely want to know? Because if I hire you, I need to figure out where you fit on my team, how you complement the strengths and weaknesses I have. And am I trying to figure out, if I hire you, do you have strengths that I can help develop? And am I positioned to help your weaknesses? Mm-hmm. Right. I say that because there's so many reasons. So I think if you're interviewing somebody that question, why are you actually asking that question? What are you hoping to learn is a good first place. Often people want to know, is there something that's going to disqualify this person or that should make me run for the hills and call off the interview, right?
Yeah.
So the way I like to help people get honest about that would be to say, hey, Matt, I believe every candidate, every person has strengths and weaknesses. And oftentimes a person's greatest strength is a double-edged sword and tied to their corresponding weaknesses.
Yeah.
And so, Matt, I would love to hear for you as you think about yourself honestly, what is your greatest strengths and what's the dark side about that, the shadow side, the corresponding weakness? And if you were on my team, what would be helpful for me to know as a manager so I can help you be your best? And I find like that type of framing sets a person at ease. Now you know why I asked that question.
Right.
Hopefully I was honest. 2, I'm not just trying to get you. 3, I'm not asking as some JV interviewer who got the first crack and you're going to give a nice pat chat GPT answer to, right? Like we're actually engaging in a real conversation here to mutually discern value and fit.
Yeah.
So I think that type of question hopefully gets a little more of an honest answer. So I like to give them the context. Here's why I'm asking this question. Help me understand so you can help me help you help me.
Yeah. I love it, Daniel. I'm so glad that I asked. Thank you. I wanted to talk a little bit about a leader building a board of advisors around them. I think that touches on a lot of the work that you do with the Sage Group. Yeah. Just a couple of things here. How can a leader sort of best access or discover the holes in their personal board of advisors?
Yeah, I love this question, Matt, because I've got a book that I'm nearly finished with on this entire subject. And the TED Talk was chapter 3 of the book. So the whole idea is I call these people, your personal board of advisors, your relational investors. And how do you find the right people around you? And that's so key because the absence or presence of those relationships can be the key that blocks or unlocks value in a business.
Yeah.
And so oftentimes we do come in as that starting point for that board with Sage, and then we bring people to them. But a lot of times that founder, again, they've taken action and they haven't quite gone to that awareness place of who am I? What am I best at? Who do I need around me? When they start to ask those questions, they don't know what they don't know and they don't know what they need.
Right.
And so I like to think of thinking of your personal board of advisors or your business board as 3 big categories: stretch, support, and strategy. Who are the people who are going to stretch you, challenge you, give you feedback, give you new perspective? It could be a different industry, different discipline, or just they've got a critical eye. Who are the people that are going to give you support? They're going to give you encouragement, mentoring, input. They're going to be there to remind you that, hey, keep pushing through. You got this, right? They're that person in your corner.
Yeah.
And then who are the people who are there strategically for strategy, right? They could be somebody who opens up doors for you that you're trying to get through, kicks down doors that you couldn't get through, or creates a door that you never even knew existed. So those advocates are a big key piece as well. Or they're there to help you think strategically about what the future can be. So I might step back and I will often have a leaders say, okay, stretch, support, and strategy. Let's rate them 1 to 5.
Yep.
Who is on that list and what's the strength of those relationships? And I'll usually note most leaders have a gap somewhere. They're like, man, I don't have anybody helping me strategically, or I've got a lot of that. I don't have anyone to support me and just remind me that I'm going to make it, which is common. Founders get lonely. So I would say that's a great place to start, is just looking at a high level and thinking, what do I have? What do I don't have? And how can I go grab it from the people I might already know?
Yeah. I love that. And you sort of got ahead of me here a little bit. I was going to ask you about how do you sort of go about mapping out a balanced personal board of advisors. I think you sort of just explained that, but maybe we could shift a little bit instead. How many is too many? Is there such thing as having a circle that's too big? Maybe how do you identify people that don't belong in that circle?
I love that too, because I believe we need different people for different reasons in different seasons. And what I mean by that is it's okay to have that board be fluid and dynamic. So maybe I've started a business that's similar to the business that you are starting, and I'm 15 years ahead. And you go, gosh, I really want to model after what you do. So I'm somebody you seek on a daily basis because you're role modeling off of what I built. Well, at some point you might pass me up, or your business shifts and you take a different turn based on what you're seeing in the market. And so it's not that you give up the relationship, but the person might not be as involved as they once were. So I think one premise is to realize you need different people for different reasons at different seasons. And that means that people can come in and out. It's fluid. It also means that you need more than one person. I think sometimes people feel like they need to find one mentor who solves all their needs. And that's ridiculous, as if that person could be there. I think even to our personal relationships, right? My wife is amazing. And I'd be foolish if I got married and said, I don't need any more friends because my wife fills all my friends. Like, that would be ridiculous. Like, too much pressure to put on her. So we have other people around us. So some people will then go from that, I just try to find one mentor, to now I'm getting too many advisors. I'm getting lots of advice out there and I'm conflicted. And so I do find having some sort of manageable number, I don't want to put a number exactly on it, but some of the research out there might suggest between 6 and 11 people, depending. And again, that might be, I go to this person for this reason. This is my person who gives me legal input.
Yeah.
This is my person I go to when I just want creative ideas.
Yeah.
This is my person who really helps me turn it into a business plan that's investable, right? So, and I might have one or two key advisors who are the inner sanctum, if you will. And I take all advice that I gather and I run it through the grinder of their perspective and input because they're with me on a longer term, deeper basis.
Absolutely. Daniel, I really appreciate you kind of jumping around here with me. So many awesome insights from the conversation today. Dr. Daniel Hallak, thank you so much. A strategic advisor at the Sage Group and Chief Commercial Officer at Wild Leaders. Daniel, do you want to tell us where we can learn more about you, where we can follow you, learn more about your ventures?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn. Always happy to have a conversation if there's a true value add for you. And Wild Leaders is wildleaders.org. And there's a lot of resources there on how to build trust, how to measure trust, participate in our benchmark study on trust. And the Sage Group is the-sage-group.com. Both places are taking a different angle on value. One's organizational, one's from the leadership angle, but it's all about, again, helping you figure out who you are, where you're going, and how to get there and create value in the process.
Excellent. Daniel, thank you for all of your time and all of your insight today.
Matt, awesome questions. Love being with you. Thanks again.
If you are listening and you are interested in exploding your own digital growth, you can get in touch with Jump 450 in the link below in the description. That is www.jump450.com. And do not forget to subscribe for more weekly episodes. We'll see you next time.